feels like spring. It feels like spring has sprung. And according to the weather this weekend, I mean, I think everyone's loving it. I feel like the mood across Edmonton, Alberta is probably just increased a couple notches based on the weather. What do you think?
Yeah, everyone is smiling. I'm so much happier just to have sunshine every day, and it's beautiful. And it's so fun showing homes when the weather's nice. It definitely makes our job easier. So, yeah.
It does. We get more phone calls. When the weather is better,
And
we
we're
get more
hopeful.
phone calls from our buyers wanting to see more properties. And in addition to that, guess what our sellers see? Our sellers see more showings, right? I mean, if we're getting a lot more buyer
Yeah.
phone calls to show properties, I mean, if you're listing a property at any kind of a reasonable market value price, you're getting more attention as well. So I'm anticipating a good weekend. I'm excited for it. We have the stats up here. We're getting right into it. This is March 2023. So for those of you who are wondering, what direction is real estate going in for Edmonton and area for 2023? This is it. These are the hard stats. These are the numbers. So if you haven't been dabbling in real estate from a buyer's perspective or a seller's, or maybe you are and you want to know where we're trending, this is it. Catherine, let's take everybody through. What are we seeing right now with home prices?
We are, I would say, on the way up in general. Prices. So looking at average selling price for a single detached home, we're currently at an average price of $486,000. So that is up month over month by 5.7%. So we are seeing prices come up. Of course, we're seeing more inventory as well hit the market. So all good things. Now we are up slightly for semi-detached homes at 2.2%. We are down in pricing for row townhouses, 1.4%, and our apartments and condos still tend to be up 2.9%. So I know I have some condo listings coming. If you are in the market for a condo, it's still a good time to buy, believe it or not. So don't rule that option out. I'll let Calvin speak on it, but clearly inventory has gone up as well as sales. So that's green is good for the most part.
Definitely. And we could feel it. I mean, we talked about this before in a previous market update. But I mean, the last quarter of last year, there was a lot of people, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of buyers that didn't want to take action because they didn't know what was going to happen with interest rates. The Bank of Canada was going up. They didn't want to tie into some kind of variable rate that was going to take them on this journey to the moon that they didn't want to be a part of. Now, what did we notice, in the last update from the Bank of Canada? They were maintaining interest rates. They didn't increase, they didn't drop them, they just left them exactly the same. That's been offering more consumer buyer confidence, which is also leading into the increase in volume of transactions. Not only just because of the interest rates, but also because the weather is getting better. So we tend to see a lot more investors or buyers that are in the, having to purchase at that time of year. Nobody really likes to move, even though, Catherine, I know you actually did move at the coldest day of the year, which is insane. But if you want to ever know how to move in minus 30 to minus 40 weather, Catherine's going to have her own separate segment on that. But we don't have to talk about snow. We don't have to talk about cold because it is nice out. And when we have more buyer confidence with the nicer weather, it brings up more buyers, specifically primary home buyers. So we are noticing an increase in single-family detached pricing. We could feel it. I mean, if you have listings right now, if you look at your neighbors and what they're selling for, most of the sellers are pretty happy. Most of the sellers are happy with how they're trending. And I know the townhouses, you're like, oh, I have a townhouse, I'm down 1.4%. Know that 1.4% really isn't much of a drop at all. You may not even notice it. But if you look back at the stats, townhouses have been seeing some good increases also, right? So this is just in comparison to last month. But I mean, townhouses, if I remember correctly, from January 2023 to now, we've actually been seeing increases, like great increases with townhouses. So this is the first month where we're seeing, a slight drop, but it doesn't mean that pricing is necessarily that bad, right? I mean, 7.4% difference from last year. Last year was a record year for us. I think it was a record year for a lot of markets as well. So with inventory, we are seeing an increase in inventory. Is that a surprise this time of year? I mean, as it gets nicer out, do we tend to see more listings, Catherine?
We do. It's definitely not a surprise. I mean, we've been telling our buyers and probably our sellers as well, get on the market as soon as you can before it gets too saturated. And, there's pros and cons to it. Of course, you want healthy competition to sell your home at a high price. But for the buyers out there, it's starting to get a little bit competitive, and it's only going to likely get more competitive. I know Calvin was speaking on townhomes, even though they are down in average pricing. I can't get into a townhouse quick enough. They keep going. So if you have one and you're waiting to put it on the market, don't wait. Go ahead, because properties are moving quite quickly. We are still seeing a lot of multiple offer situations. I don't know about you, Calvin, but pretty much every second property I am looking at, there is a multiple developing, or you could see that in a few days. So if you are shopping, definitely shop seriously. If you do like something, make sure you put that offer in as soon as you can. So, yeah.
Yeah. So buyers, you're seeing more inventory. If you've been a little bit disgruntled, a little bit frustrated based off not seeing the properties you want, maybe there's a very specific type of property you've been waiting to see and you haven't been seeing it, know that the spring market and summer market provides you more volume of inventory. Your appetite will be fed. Yeah. There's a good chance. Okay. This is the time of year where we see the most amount of inventory for your shopping. Okay. And we're going to talk about how it's going to affect sellers as well. So for buyers, you have more shopping options. That's a good thing. We're also seeing a lot more sales. Look at this 42.3 increase in sales month over month. We're almost seeing a 50% increase from what was already a busy February into an even busier March. I'm anticipating that when we look back at April stats, when we're doing the May market update, it's going to be even busier. It's typical for this time of year. Like I said, we're starting to see a lot more primary home buyers introduced into the market as it gets nicer, because no one is courageous enough, like Catherine, to move when it's minus 30. Let's be honest. Okay. Days on market. If I remember correctly, last month we've been a little bit higher. I think 2 days higher on market. Average days on market is decreasing as well. Again, I know that we're comparing to last year. If you guys are looking at the stats, it's hard to compare to last year because last year was a different beast of its own. We haven't seen a market like last year, I think, ever in the Edmonton area. We hit new records all around. So, Catherine, what is some of your best tips we can offer to buyers right now? What are some ways that the buyers can win in today's market? So if they're going out and shopping this weekend or this month, what's something you can leave for them?
For sure. If you are hoping to purchase something relatively soon, just make sure that pre-approval is complete. And when you are viewing homes, really just make sure you have a strategy for your offer process. Make sure you know how much you'd like to spend. When it comes down to finding the right property, keep in mind, I don't know, Calvin may be able to speak on this, but I'm finding the pricing to be quite stable. So if you are hoping to offer on something, ask your agent. Ask them, how relative is this compared to the other properties? Where should we be at for, an offer? Of course, it's all up to you how much you feel the property is worth. But if you want to win, make sure you have your pre-approval, have a letter if you can, and ask your agent for all the other ways that you can win in a multiple offer situation, because you may be the first one to see the property, but later in the day or the next day, they may have a few more showings, and soon, behold, you could be in a multiple. But if you're not, that's great. That's an advantage for you as well. So there is some inventory right now that's probably been sitting. We might see it quickly go here soon. So just as a buyer, be prepared as always. Enjoy all of the inventory and enjoy shopping in the nice weather. And that would be my biggest few tips.
Big thing. Yes, exactly. And one more tip for the buyers: pay attention to the landscaping. If it's a condo that's not bare land, then obviously, if it's a condo, you don't necessarily have to pay as much attention to the landscaping. I still would, because it shows you the property management's, consideration and care to the property. But snow's melted. So take a good look, see what the seller's been doing. I mean, take a look at the landscaping that's been there, right? Because you're going to have to factor that in. If you're buying a property and the seller hasn't taken good care of the landscaping, you're the one that's paying the price. So this is the time of year where take a look at the exterior. You have full glimpse of the shingles. You have full glimpse of the water management, the grading, the eaves troughs, the downspouts, everything. So make sure that, when you're doing your walkthroughs, don't just walk Exactly. Do a tour of the entire surrounding. You're not going to be drenched in snow this time. There might be some puddles you have to watch out for, but not for long, based on the weather we're seeing. So that's the last little cherry on the top I'm going to offer for buyers. For sellers, I'm going to focus my tip today on sellers that have tried to list and sell pre-spring market. If you have entered the market pre-spring because we saw the amount of early traction, but maybe you position yourself too high with price, which is probably the number one reason why you're sitting and you haven't sold yet. So if you listed in January and February or December and you still haven't sold, I hate to say it, you've priced yourself too high, not for where you feel the house should sell at, but for where buyers are willing to pay for your property. So again, there's always that disconnect where you want to sell versus where the market and where buyers are willing to pay. There may be a disconnect. And if you haven't sold yet and it's already been 30, 60 days or more, you're priced too high. I hate to say it, you're priced too high. It's the way it is. So what to watch out for is that now that we're starting into a market where literally the amount of properties that are coming available are quadrupling. So instead of it being 15 to 20 properties in your area that are coming available every single day, now it's going to be triple that, quadruple that. So buyers are not going to be paying attention to the older properties anymore. They're going to be so busy with the amount of new inventory that's coming up. And that's going to be enough to feed most buyers' appetites. So what's going to happen to all the older properties that have been listed? I don't mean older in age. I mean older for days on market that have been listed now for some time. There's a good chance they're going to be forgotten about. They're left in the dust. They're now that friend that's been available, on the market for dating for the last 2-3 years. And all this new inventory and guys and girls are hitting the streets. And it's like, well, what's wrong with that guy or what's wrong with that girl? Nobody's really paying attention to them, to the same degree anymore. So if you've been on the market, this is the time where you want to do a price adjustment to get your property sold because most of the buyer attention is going to be focused on all the new inventory that's hitting because it's going to be a lot. And it's going to continue to increase until we hit our peak, which I'm expecting around June or July. So that's my final seller tip. Catherine, any last words for everybody out there today?
I couldn't agree more with everything Calvin said. And I hope you all have a lovely Easter weekend and enjoy the spring market we're having. If you have not, get your property on market. It is now time. It's such a good time to sell. And it really is a great time to be a buyer too. So take advantage of it while you can. We're always going to say that, of course, but I mean, we can feel it. We're in the market every day. We're busy. So if we're busy, that means the market's busy. So take advantage and wish you all a great Easter weekend. Awesome.
Absolutely. Happy Easter, Catherine. Have a great weekend. I know we'll be in touch lots, but have a great weekend. And I'm excited to hear some stories for next month as well.
Awesome.
Okay,
thanks, everyone.
Okay. See you. Bye.
Bye.